Phenomenal support for the India Against Corruption entire protest which has been going on now. Anna Hazare's second day of fast. Geetika is joining me from Jantar Mantar, where there are more people there with her. Geetika, give us a sense of what the mood there is tonight at Jantar Mantar. Geetika, can you hear me? I do not think I have the audio link with Geetika. Geetika, let me give it one more try. Geetika, can you hear me? I'm afraid I don't have the link with her. Okay, well, I'll go back to Geetika the moment I have the link with her. But let me introduce my guest this evening. Shalaka Thakur is an undergraduate student joining me from Mumbai. She's been part of the protest. Firoz Abbas Khan, well-known director, stage personality and stage director. Thank you very much. Also joining us on our panel this evening, Srivatsa, on deputation. Jay Panda is a member of parliament, a member of us tonight. Meghnad Desai. Thank you, gentlemen. I want to ask you there to the protest.
Finally, there is a cause worth fighting for, and the most important thing is that it's something concrete. It's not just people on the street saying that we don't want corruption because we don't want corruption. There is a bill, there is a goal in mind.
What's the goal?
We want to pass the General Lokpal bill. It's the first step. I'm not saying that it will stop corruption altogether, but it's the first step. It's a concrete step. We know what we are fighting for, and the end is clear.
Do you fear that this may not, there are powerful lobbies there? A lot of people who want this protest to end very quickly.
Of course.
So that we can all move on and pretend it never happened, and then maybe, wait for another 42 years.
I think how it goes depends entirely on the youth. Since the youth, they're not corrupted by all of this as of now. So as long as the youth is for it, and it is gaining a lot of momentum with the youth, it will go ahead. It can't stop as long as we know that there is something that can change the present day scenario. There is something that can be the first step towards ending corruption. We can all see it. It's clear. The difference between the two bills is clear. And as long as it is before us, we're going to continue fighting for it. It will certainly not dissolve. Not with the kind of momentum it's gaining.
Incredible. I mean, I must put on record here because I don't know when was the last youth movement. This is strange. A 73-year-old man leading a youth movement. Incredible. Priyadarshini is also joining us here in the studio. She's a businesswoman. What do you think about what's happening?
I think it's a great movement. It's more of a revolution than a movement, and the youth should come out in more numbers and join us. I guess since Anna Hazare is leading the movement, and there are several other key figures whose integrity we can trust.
You think it may be hijacked by politicians?
I fear that may happen. However, we shouldn't let that happen. But then another thing is we are not afraid, nor are we motivated by favors. The movement is clear. We are fighting for the Jan Lokpal bill. There is a difference between the government's bill and the Jan Lokpal bill. I'm reiterating this. We are fighting for this. We are pushing this. That is the platform. Whoever wants to come forward and help us achieve this, whether it's the opposition party, they are free to do so. We are not going to anybody. We are not stopping anybody from joining us.
Well, it's having a tremendous viral effect. I mean, I haven't seen something like this for a long time. Jay Panda, what do you think as a member of parliament? You think this is not, we had another of our panelists say, this kind of, it's an anti-politician sentiment. We saw this in 26/11. People didn't go out and vote after that, but this is not that. This is something very focused. They want a Jana Lokpal bill, a truly independent anti-corruption watchdog, which politicians have ensured does not happen for more than 4 decades.
Well, it's high time something happened. Draft Lokpal bills have been going on for nearly half a century. And the anger that we see, not just among the young people, I mean, old people are angry too. The average Indian citizen is very angry at what's been happening in this country. And I think we may be reaching a point where action can no longer be avoided. And that's a good thing. I think from whatever I've read, I agree with most of what the Jan Lokpal bill or the draft that Anna Hazare is supports. For example, we till now have required governmental approval for any prosecutions to be initiated against politicians or bureaucrats or judges. That is a hangover from the British Raj, That is not what a democratic country like India should have. So most of those proposals should be adopted. But I also think that, when very important and respectable lawyers have said that there are one or two areas of concerns, I think we should allow those voices to also mediate and ensure that this bill goes through in a manner that is not struck down by the courts,
Yes.
that it goes through in the first place. And as long as we can retain, most of the proposals that Anna Hazare has made, I think we should consider it as a victory.
To our viewers, I'm going to now going to Meghnad Desai in just a bit, and then we'll go point by point on what we think are the pros and cons of this bill. I just want to go once to Jantar Mantar. I think we have Geetika back with us now. Geetika, what's the mood there? Will this sustain itself?
Arnav, it's been 2 days that this moment has really begun, but with each passing moment you can really see the passion, the enthusiasm, the patriotism just kind of swell with each passing moment. In fact, we have been speaking to a lot of people here and they call it India's Tahrir Square, the beginning of a movement, a crusade against corruption. I'll just go straight across to the people who I have with me here. I have Ashwin. Ashwin, what do you think is what makes this the right time for a moment like this?
I think this is the right time that we should come together as a nation and weed out this cancer that has struck our country for so long. I've come here to support this movement with my kids who are here and with my wife, and I think that we should all come together, unite together and weed it out.
Okay, and we have also been kind of getting a sense of the kind of frustration that is there in the people of how the corruption, the scams, it's all peaking and yet the government is not doing anything. Ma'am, what brings you here and what is the one message that you want to send to the government by your presence here?
Look, I just want to tell government to start listening to civil society. I think we've had enough of this, and I just feel somehow that corruption has seeped into our genes. So I don't know what's going to make things turn around, and I really, really want them to understand that the voice of civil society is really important, and that's what's kept this country going for so long.
And you also agree with the kind of changes that are being called on the part of the government, that the Jan Lokpal bill is being called for? Are you
Absolutely, I'm 100% with it. But those changes need to happen. I mean, who's going to allow us? I mean, look at the other side where you have to go to the vice president and to the speaker, and that also you can't directly go to them. So what kind of democracy are we talking about? What kind of Lokpal bill are we talking about when you have to go to these people before our voices are heard?
That's right. In fact, I have Arunima here with me as well, who's been working with this movement for a very long time. Arunima, what do you think makes this movement really, really special and really empowers the citizen? What is your take on it?
The best part of the whole movement is that the people from all walks of life are there. People who are actually doing something for the country, like Shri Ravi Shankar, Swami Ramdev, Arvind Kejriwal, Kiran Bedi. All of these people have united and are taking a stand. Today we've witnessed thousands of people marching from India Gate to Jantar Mantar, youth of the country. And I appeal to the youth of the country that stop cribbing and now take a stand and be here and support the movement. We can change and we have to change.
So, Arnav, that's pretty much the sentiment here
Absolutely.
at Jantar Mantar, not only here but also something that is reverberating across the nation, that it is time to stop cribbing and time to take action and time to really stand up for our rights. Back
Absolutely.
to you.
Thank you, Geetika. Arvind Kejriwal will be debating the points of that bill with Krishna Srivastav joining in 2 minutes. But Lord Desai, what do you make of what you are seeing tonight, Lord Desai?
Yeah.
What do you make of this?
Well, I have memories of 1968 in Britain and France, which had no old people at all leading it. It was all led by young people, and they were tremendously revolutionary, and they did make a lot of changes. What we have here is more reminiscent of what JP was doing in 1974, and the whole Navnirman movement that JP did. At a time when Indira Gandhi had an enormous majority in Lok Sabha, a lot of legitimacy, but still it shook the government then. And I think this government is being too complacent, too legalistic. I think they're so enamored with the fact that they're elected. They are not actually willing to listen. There's a big trust deficit, and I think the only way to do it would be to have the committee of the civil society, and the government should have a committee in which no UPA or NDA MP is a member. Let us have MPs who have nothing to do with any current or previous government. Otherwise, the trust deficit will continue. After the bill is agreed, then the Parliament can take it over. But right now, people do not trust ministers or ex-ministers or anybody who has been in power, because the whole system is very badly tainted. So I am hoping that something will, this will continue, that the whole upsurge will get more and more strength, and hopefully by the weekend we will see real tumultuous movement across India.
Well, let's see. You think it will last, Feroz?
You know, for the last 40 years, the political class has been able to, in a way, believe that it's convinced the people of this country that they have to internalize corruption, as if it is a lubricant that makes the governments function. And they believed that now the younger generation, they believe, is a kind of a self-centered, selfish generation, and it may not have anything to do with it, and it's something that the older generation is an obsession, and it is very yesterday. Now this is the roadblock that they've gone into. They have realized that all the assumptions of the younger generation are absolutely misplaced, because for them a corrupt India is a great embarrassment, and that jeopardizes their future. And for them, they want an India, not just an India in terms of all the other apparent sort of progress that it makes, but at its core value, it has to be.
So you think
an honest India.
Among those people out there are some people who are saying, what happened to Kalmadi? Will Raja get away once again? Why does Kalmadi walk in and out of the CBI office as if he's another day at work?
But that is exactly the reason, is the former, the cynicism.
Is there a corporate politician nexus that we don't know all about?
That is exactly the cynicism, and that's the reason the rage that is coming in from on the streets is that they believe that in the end, the powerful are going to get away with it, and there seems to be a nexus because the political class has never put corruption on its agenda. Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the last 40 years, except for the euphoria of VP Singh with Bofors, it has never been there.
You know, one of our tweets, someone's writing into us, his name is Kiran Basawa, is tweeting, he says, I live in Bahrain, I'm watching Jantar Mantar live, and I feel I should have been there in India to make me count on that. You know, there are Indians all over the world who are connecting to this somewhere. Timing is of course significant, but Arvind Kejriwal has been spearheading this movement. He joins us now from Jantar Mantar. Arvind, tonight I also want to spend some time discussing the pros and cons of this bill with you. But first, what do you think of this movement and where it started? Did you think it would rise to this point when you started out 2 days back?
Arnab, the first surprise for us was when we did that rally on 30th January. At that time we had planned for a rally for 3,000 people, but 30,000 people landed up at Ramlila grounds. And spontaneously rallies took place in 62 places. At that time we realized that there was so much of anger in the country that if we demanded specific systemic changes, the people might join in and rally behind it. So that's how the demand for Jan Lokpal bill has grown, and now frankly we did not expect this kind of overwhelming response of the people. I am frankly quite overwhelmed by whatever the response has been so far. Yesterday more than 450 places in the country Anshan took place, and today here along with Anna Hazare 160 people are sitting on fast unto death in Delhi alone. I don't know how many people are sitting across the country on fast unto death.
How will you ensure politicians don't hijack it? We already saw 2 politicians walking in. How are you going to ensure politicians don't hijack this?
You see, I don't think there is any danger, because so far in 2 days the reaction of the public to the politicians has not been very encouraging. And secondly, we had a meeting in the morning, all the volunteers, and we decided that we will not be rude or we will not misbehave with anyone. If any politician comes, we will ask him to sit in the audience and listen to the speakers and support and go back. But today when some of these politicians came, there was so much of crowd at Jantar Mantar that we had absolutely no control over them. So they were actually chased away by the people. The anger of the people was so much. So I don't think there is any danger of any politician or party hijacking it.
Okay. Srivatsa Krishna is joining me from Bangalore, who's a bureaucrat on deputation right now, has some concerns about your bill. And Srivatsa, I want you to, point by point, I want you to make one point, then I want Arvind to respond, then we'll debate it. What is your biggest problem with the bill that Arvind and Anna Hazare are drafting today? The People's or Jan Lokpal bill?
Arnab, unlike Arvind, who's resigned from the IRS, I'm a serving officer and I'm here in my personal capacity. I'd like to preface my comments with that. I think the bill is exemplary and this marks India's second war for independence has begun. The first was for self-governance and this is for good governance. And all power and strength to Anna Hazare, Arvind and Kiran, who are spearheading collective action among good people, which is so hard to bring about. Having said that, while the pendulum today has swung one side and there's rampant corruption, we must ensure that the Jan Lokpal bill does not allow the pendulum to swing too far the other side. Let me give you one example. E. Sridharan, who's an icon and an exemplar person of personal integrity, gave Delhi Metro. There are numerous CAG reports which talk about the violations done by Delhi Metro. And there are enormous procedural violations which have been done by Sridharan in Delhi Metro. I, for one, as a researcher of infrastructure, believe that the Delhi Metro would not have come about but for Sridharan having done these violations. So should a Jan Lokpal bill immediately, without seeking sanction for prosecution, go after someone merely because the CAG report says there are procedural violations? Far from it. So I think what we need is a nuanced strategy. We should not throw the baby out with the bath water. And a two-pronged approach is required. One, we should continue to have permissions sought for prosecuting civil servants in cases where distinct mens rea cannot be proved. Nowhere in the world, I've looked at laws in America, in Indonesia, in Singapore, in the Scandinavian countries. Nowhere in the world do you go after notings on files and say that this bureaucrat is corrupt because he wrote this. Trace the money. Our quality of forensic evidence and forensic investigation needs enormous improvement. We need to trace the money, and where money has been traced, do not take sanctions for permission.
No, but it's Scandinavian.
But in all other cases,
I want Arvind to now respond to what you said. But I must say that in Scandinavian countries, the ombudsman has the power to prosecute erring public servants. We are nowhere close to that in India. Arvind, you would like to respond to what Srivastava said. Let me get a response first. He's saying don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
No, I just want to say that I think Mr. Krishnan has misunderstood that provision. All that we have said, that today Controller and Auditor General of India audits so many departments and no action is taken on their reports. Some of those things make it to the parliament, but most of the paras don't even make it to the parliament. In parliament, nothing happens to those reports. So all that we have suggested is that the CAG, wherever it feels that a case is made out on corruption or for vigilance matter, will refer that matter to the Lokpal. So don't you have faith in the CAG? Do you want a separate body to prosecute sanction? Number one. So CAG is a constitutional authority. He's a retired, most of the time retired secretary to the government of India. He is going to apply his mind. Number two, once he forwards these cases to Lokpal, Lokpal will not accept it on its face value. Lokpal will do its own investigations.
Is that the only worry you have, Krishna?
Arnab, the point I'm trying to make is it can very easily be misused and it can be used. I'm not saying it will be. It can potentially become a tool to harass the honest. The cost of indecision and delays, killing initiatives among honest public servants, the cost of that can be as high as the cost of corruption. So my request to Arvind and to all those in this movement is, please ensure the pendulum does not swing too far the other side, so that in your quest to seek justice and wanting to throw out the provisions of seeking permission for prosecution,
but
do not do away with it altogether, because it can be used
noted.
to harm the honest public servant.
Point noted. But have we really come to that? Yes. Yes, Baijayant Desai. No, have we come to that? Have we even come to that? Yes.
The point is, this pendulum is not swinging at all, rather than swinging too far. What we are right now debating is a pendulum right now is entirely in favor of the corrupt. Let the people try and move it half the way. Don't worry about swinging it too far. We haven't got any action for 42 years, and people are complaining about going too far. What is this?
Yeah, that's truly the case. For example, just taking one example here, and Jay Panda, I want you to come in on this. You know, the government bill, the government proposal does not talk of investigation of complaints against judges, against the judiciary. You know, Lokpal will have powers to initiate investigations on complaint of corruption against judges. Do you think the judiciary will be generous enough to allow, without legal, questions being raised and pinpricks raised, that level of scrutiny against their own?
Well, I hope that...
Yes, Jeff, Mr. Panda.
Is this to me or not?
No, that's to Mr. Panda, yes. Mr. Panda, go ahead.
I hope that the judiciary will take a bigger view that a lot of radical change is necessary. And I don't think anybody can dispute that corruption is not...
I'm sorry. Sorry.
So I don't think any public servant should be exempt. And I hope that the judiciary will take a broader, bigger view of this.
No, because tonight issue is simply this. We know what government committees are for. Mr. Panda, the citizen of this country has seen through government committees, subcommittees. We know what had happened to the women's bill for a decade and a half. We know what has happened in this case. Are you willing to give that time? Tomorrow, if the government says, okay, we'll have a committee, we'll have a discussion, we promise you that we will investigate the possibility of a committee. Is that enough to call off the protest?
Definitely not.
I think we should be skeptical about committees. And I think we should recognize the fact that often ideas are killed by sending them to committee. But the fact is we have a political process in our democracy, and we can't bypass that. We need to co-opt what is happening at Jantar Mantar today. I have already come out and said that I'm in favor of most of the proposals made by Anna Hazare. But the fact is, this must go to Parliament to get passed as an act. You can't avoid that. So we must put it up to the standing committee that deals with this, and then it should go to Parliament. But I think we should take strength from the movement that is happening at Jantar Mantar, because it will give strength to those of us inside Parliament who wish to adopt some of these measures.
Well, I think that's in a minority tonight. Yes, Meghnad Desai. Yes, Mr. Desai.
I think people have to stop traffic in every big town. They really have to register their anger and actually bring the nation to a halt. That will be very green, I think, anyway. But unless something happens which makes people think that this is a very serious proposition, a peaceful fast is not going to be enough. No matter 150 people do it, 300 people do it. The anger has got to be expressed by peaceful protest, which actually will disrupt activity.
So what are you
great
suggesting?
Believer in that.
What are you suggesting, Lord Meghnad Desai? You are saying this is not enough? The Jantar Mantar protest is not enough?
Every big metro, people stop traffic in downtown by just sitting down on the road. That will make the government realize that this is going to be very, very costly unless they do something pretty seriously.
Arvind Kejriwal.
I've done these sorts of things in my young days.
I'm sure you have. Arvind Kejriwal, what are your plans for this movement? Is this going to be limited to 2 or 3 cities? Are you going to attempt to make it bigger, to make it more national or inclusive?
Arnab, as I told you, we are not making any attempts. It's a spontaneous, completely spontaneous movement. 450 places. Yesterday there was 1-day Anshan. And now it is continuing in many places. Relay fasts are continuing. Fast unto death is continuing. On 12th of this month, there is going to be a Jail Bharo Andolan all across the country in many of these places. Now I don't know how it's going to, because as days pass by and if Anna's health deteriorates, I think there's going to be an emotional upsurge all over the country, and I don't know how the people are going to react to that.
I don't think the government can afford it. Vinod Sharma, why is the government allowing this to play out without even giving till this word or that we are willing?
Well, I think that they are playing with their own future, as I told you earlier. I mean, I don't know what is the problem. I mean, the simple demand of the activists today is that there should be a committee that is inclusive. There should be a drafting committee that is inclusive of civil liberty activists, civil society activists and the government. And my personal view is also that is represented in Parliament. You come to an agreement on a draft, and then the draft is passed by the cabinet and placed before the Parliament for it to pass without hindrance. And my only advice here would be that, that the text of the draft should be such that it should not run counter to the existing scheme, constitutional scheme, where the judiciary, the executive, the legislature defined powers. And this Lokpal should actually be strengthening those institutions against corruption, besides itself being proactively against corruption. I mean, no new institution can be created at the expense of the existing institutions. Our task is to strengthen them and create new institutions to check corruption. And that is where I think the challenge lies. And that is where the negotiating skills of people like Mr. Kejriwal will be tested.
Well, who's
the negotiating skills of Kiran Bedi will be tested.
Sure. Well,
Anna Hazare's perseverance will be tested.
No, we are not.
And that is where I think the truth,
Vinod Sharma, I get a sense. I get a sense.
They should.
No, I get a sense this has become a bit of an ego issue on all. It's a question of who'll step forward or who'll blink first.
Government can't. See, this government cannot stand on ego on the issue of corruption because it has lost so much of its in popular esteem in terms of corruption because of corruption. So if it wants to enhance itself in popular esteem, it must come to terms with the existing
Krishna,
situation
quick last word.
and accept this all-inclusive drafting committee.
Another point I'm trying to make is that I think the agitation is stuck on the point of should they be a member of this drafting committee or not. My point is that's not important. Whether it is X or Y, who brings in the substantive provisions into the bill is what doesn't matter, but the substantive provision should be there. Arvind himself said there are 10 instances of notification in Maharashtra where Anna Hazare was part of the committee. Is that a guarantee that corruption has gone down in all those departments where those notifications have come out in Maharashtra? Absolutely not. Far from it. So being a part of a drafting committee is one step. Even if they are not there, but the provisions, but that is institution which comes out at the end of it is substantive. I think that's what's important.
We are disregarding the basic point. The basic point is it has become a tussle. It has become an ego issue. It has become, why should we give in? This is a process we have established in New Delhi, and the process in New Delhi is not going to change overnight, even if there are thousands of people or hundreds of thousands of people on Twitter or all over the country protesting. We have created a system. This is the system, this is the legislature, this is the executive. You're not elected, you don't have a voice. That seems to be the basic nature of the argument. Yes.
May I remind you?
To a young participant first.
Yes,
to a young participant first.
I think it's time that changed, because the government does not belong to the ministers, the government belongs to us. What the people want is what should be reflected.
Right. It should be a participatory democracy. It's not merely an elected democracy.
Actually, what has happened is over a period of time, over a period of time, over a period of time, I think this has been the way the political parties have worked. They have been able to exhaust the civil society. They have been able to make sure that they can manage corruption. And I think there is a larger issue here, that we reached a tipping point. The society does not just feel what is called exhausted, and they are not feeling suffocated. It's almost become asphyxiated by this. I mean, they can't take it anymore. And I think the larger issues have to be understood. We can go on about, look, this is the problem and we need to do that. Yes, 40 years have gone. The question is that you not been able to sort it out. I mean, how long a whole generation has gone accepting that corruption is the way of life, and this new generation says, I'm sorry, I'm not going to accept it. Yes. Now, this being a tipping point, for God's sake, hear the voice. And today, corruption has to become the issue in the election and for the future of this country.
Yeah, you wanted to come in here. You wanted to come in when I was making that earlier point. Go ahead.
Yes. Which point are you
referring? The question here being raised is this. And one second, Mr. Sharma. Question being raised here is this. There are some who view this as interference in the established systems of functioning in New Delhi. Yes. Things work in New Delhi in a certain way. Committees are there, subcommittees are there, the government functions in a certain way. It has got a certain cozy relationship with the opposition on certain issues on which it comes forward. And this is being seen as unnecessary interference. I'm sorry to say, almost patronizing way some people say, these are people, young people, we appreciate your passion, we like the fact that you are angry, but you don't know how government functions. That's the kind of patronizing tone I've heard over and over again. What would you say to that?
I don't think we're encroaching upon anything. This is our right. We have a right to get what we want. If all the people want it, that is what is going to happen. And unfortunately, we have to show that through numbers, which is what people are doing. I'll give you an example to show how far this movement is getting. A sister of mine who's doing architecture called me from Belgaum to say that they all wanted to start a movement over there. When things reach that point, because I'll tell you something honestly, the youth are not particularly enticed by, no matter how respectable. Even people like Anna Hazare ji, they have commanded this respect by standing for something that is in everyone's hearts. So when people come down to the streets, it sends a clear message. If we don't do it, then we're sealing our own fate.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I mean, there's also
you wanted to come in there as well. I don't know of any national movement in which the youth get involved which has not reached its goal. Please go ahead.
Exactly, like she said, the movement is on the grassroots and it's on a national level. You mentioned that is it only selected in select cities? Is it happening here, there, or is it
a metro movement?
Is it a metro movement? Is it an elitist movement? Certainly not. In fact, we welcome anybody to go online. That is the reason why. Look, two things come in the picture. One is apathy and another thing is cynicism. Most people are good at heart. They want a particular, most people have integrity. Most people are honest. They do their job. They go back home and they repeat the same circle every day. Most people want to do the right thing. Yeah. They probably don't know where to go, or they have not been able to come together in large numbers before that.
And this is given that opportunity.
Yeah. Today we have the tools, Arnav. Today we have the tools. We have the internet, we have various forums where we can come together on a mass scale. There does not need to be cynicism, there does not need to be apathy. ये कुछ नहीं होने वाला, ये attitude की ज़रूरत नहीं है.
I get a strong sense this is going to grow. As I wrap this tonight, I want to ask you, Meghnad Desai. You see this growing? You see Jantar Mantar, Azad Maidan, India Gate becoming bigger tomorrow, day after?
Yeah, I see this growing, I see this getting angrier, because I think the establishment is so complacent, so completely laid back in its attitude, so patronizing, that I have seen young people getting angry in other situations in other countries. And I think what we need is more young people out there, more anger and more articulation that there is an alternative, that the alternative can be drafted by the civil society, and if the government has objections to it, let it come down and state what they are, and not just dismiss the civil society in this kind of complacent manner. I think we need more anger. There is far too little anger.
There's one very important question, the integrity of the people. Mr. Anna Hazare, Kejriwal is not asking a house in Adarsh Colony.
Not running for office.
He's not asking for a spectrum. He is neither asking for a plot of land or any mine, or neither is he asking any contract for CWG. So look at the kind of, what are they asking? They're asking, we don't want corruption in this country. And that's, I think, is at the core. And I think let's understand that now corruption is going to be the issue that's going to seize the heart and mind of this nation.
Well, I am even getting some messages here. I just want to say one thing at the end here. Now, what I find incredible about this is that you have people who are over the age of 70, and you have people who are far below the age of 20, all getting involved. There must be some inflection point. Some people message that some of the older people have got admitted to hospital after being on fast for 2 days. One salutes their spirit today, because this spirit is not artificial, nor is it political. I don't know if it can be curtailed. I'm just going to wrap it up here, because we must carry on with our coverage. We have much more coming up. I want to thank all of you. We're going to continue the coverage, not just from Jantar Mantar, but from everywhere across the country, because this is, as I said, a tipping point. Good night and goodbye.
जब तक ये लोकपाल बिल का कानून नहीं बनता, तब तक मैं जारी रखूंगा। तो ये लड़ाई हमारी आज़ादी की दूसरी लड़ाई है। ये जो आज़ादी मिले की अभी गरीब को न्याय देने वाला ये लड़ाई होगी, गरीब लोगों को न्याय देने वाला।